As dusk settled over the room, the intercom abruptly rang. Brushing away tears that had streaked my cheeks, I glanced at the monitor. There, side by side, stood my mother-in-law and Stella. "They've come to help," I muttered, rushing to the front door. Opening it, I was taken aback. "Come on, bring everything in," my mother-in-law commanded. A group of movers with cheerful greetings of "excuse us" entered the house. "What? Wait, what's happening?" I stammered, utterly bewildered. My son Wyatt, hearing my confusion from upstairs, hurried down the stairs. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, watching the movers bustling about. I'm not sure," I replied, still trying to grasp the situation. As I turned to Wyatt, trying to make sense of it, my father-in-law Thomas took charge. "We're moving in, you need to leave. Pack up and go," he declared, directing the movers to place items in the living room and other spaces. Suddenly, Wyatt paled. "No, you can't. Don't you understand?" he exclaimed, his voice trembling. "This house isn't Dad's anymore, and it's haunted." Thomas spun around, the room falling silent as the movers froze in place. Wyatt stood there, visibly shaken. "My name is Victoria, and I'm 41 years old. My husband Isaac just turned 42 and works as a businessman. Isaac is naturally calm. He doesn't indulge in drinking, smoking, or gambling. He devotes himself to his work every day for the sake of our family. His favorite pastime, watching movies with me on weekends. Until last year, our son Wyatt used to join us too. But since starting middle school, he's been more focused on extracurriculars and hanging out with friends, spending less time with us." While it saddened me, Isaac seemed to find it heartwarming. He fondly reminisces about his own school days, opting for a local public high school over the prestigious private one his parents favored. He speaks proudly of being class and student council president and recalls his best friend from those years. "Thomas was your best friend back then, right, Isaac?" I playfully prod him. Isaac chuckles. "You've always been a tease," and admits, "My parents would have had a fit if they knew." Reflecting on those times, he adds, "But they were some of the best years." "Are you enjoying yourself now?" I inquire one evening as we watch a DVD at home. Isaac nods thoughtfully. "I am," he confirms, then gazes around our living room with a tender smile. "Actually, I'd say it's more than enjoyment. We chose and bought this house together. I have a wonderful wife, a spirited son." His sincerity makes me blush. I couldn't ask for more. "That's where you say, a beautiful wife," I playfully prompt, swinging my arm toward Isaac, who laughs and deftly dodges it. Yes, having a beautiful wife makes me happy," he agrees, smiling warmly. "Now all that's left is to work hard to pay off our mortgage. We're still working on that." Isaac has structured our finances so we can stay at home with our son without financial stress. I feel incredibly fortunate to have such a thoughtful husband. As we sit side by side watching a DVD, I reflect silently. Isaac often says he's happy with our life together, but I can't help thinking he wasn't very happy before we married, especially at his parents' house. It's evident from his strained relationship with them and his sister Stella. I've heard it all began when Isaac decided against attending the high school his parents preferred. Stella, 2 years older than Isaac, dutifully followed their wishes, excelling in academics and even working at a company they approved of. Isaac believes she's incapable of thinking for herself because of their controlling influence. It's easy to conform to parental expectations, but it also fosters dependency and an inability to make independent decisions or adapt to new circumstances. Sure enough, when Stella started working, she struggled without explicit instructions and left the company within a year. Her parents quickly arranged a marriage for her despite her relationship with Isaac. They adopted my brother-in-law as their son and had him live with them. To me, it doesn't make sense to adopt a son when they already have a perfectly good eldest son in Isaac. And speaking of their family, Isaac's father is just a typical businessman. Personally, I never saw the need for them to stretch financially to send their children to private high schools. "Oh, that's just my parents' silly pride," Isaac would say. There was a wealthy family living near Isaac's parents' house. Their daughter was the same age as Stella. They used to play together as kids, but from elementary school onwards, she attended a private school and gradually distanced herself from the neighborhood kids. While there was no specific incident with that family, Isaac's parents seemed quite envious of them. They became determined to send their own children to private schools, working hard to afford Stella's private high school education. As a result, our dinners at home were rather simple, while Stella's school lunches were always extravagant, leading to a somewhat peculiar dietary lifestyle. Isaac, seeing no reason to strain himself to attend a private high school, opted for a public one instead, a decision I wholeheartedly supported. However, my in-laws were furious, and their attitude towards Isaac changed drastically from that day. They used to take pride in the envy-inducing mentions of the prestigious high school their daughter attended. When asked about their son, they might have felt embarrassed admitting he attended a public school, but perhaps their dreams of an unnecessarily elevated lifestyle didn't quite match reality. My in-laws and Stella's family, along with their 3 children, currently reside in a rented house. Renting a home isn't inherently bad, but I often wondered if there were more effective uses for their money than trying to keep up appearances. They went into debt to fund Stella's private high school and college education, and they're still paying it off. I could never quite grasp my in-laws' perspective on money. This disparity was also evident in the unequal amounts given as Christmas gifts to Stella's children compared to Wyatt. While it could be attributed to living arrangements, it seemed unfair to Wyatt. I couldn't help but sigh at the thought of Wyatt being inadvertently affected by this. My in-laws also seemed to have a distaste for the fact that we own our own house. A 2-story house. 4 bedrooms. That's larger than ours, they remarked once. A study room too? Quite bold for someone from a public school. They occasionally visit our home and make such snide comments. They nitpick things like, "There's a stain here," or "the hardwood floor is discolored in spots," and then dismissively add, "It's not all that impressive, after all." Honestly, I fail to see the point in their behavior. If they don't like it, they don't have to come over. Isaac thinks it's because they're jealous. Despite their own financial constraints, we own a house, even with a mortgage. Isaac jokes, "They're always trying to keep up appearances." Don't let it bother you, Isaac reassures me. However, when Isaac and Wyatt are not around, my mother-in-law and Stella take the opportunity to visit. Lately, they've started exploring the house while I'm occupied, commenting, "We could turn this into our bedroom," or, "My husband would love this European-style room. This large room would make a perfect study for the kids, don't you think?" They discuss such presumptuous ideas between themselves. "What are you doing?" I finally asked them one day, unable to contain my irritation. They quickly put on fake smiles. "Oh, we were just looking around. You're taking a while with the tea." Closing the door to the room they were peeking into, I asked them to return to the living room. I was taken aback when my mother-in-law casually asked for a spare key. I couldn't possibly give my mother-in-law, who walks around people's homes uninvited, a spare key. There's a risk she might snoop through our drawers and closets when we're not around, I thought, considering how poorly she had treated Isaac. It felt incredibly selfish of them to even ask for one. "Well, I'll need to discuss it with Isaac first," I said at the time, brushing off the request and waiting for Isaac to return before firmly declining over the phone. "How can you refuse to give your parents a key?" my mother-in-law exclaimed angrily. "But given their behavior, we simply couldn't trust them. In any case, please only come over when either Victoria or I are home," Isaac told her firmly before ending the call. The phrase "health is the most important thing," often spoken in their generation, suddenly carried a deep resonance. Then came Isaac's diagnosis with cancer. We were stunned when what started as tests for stomach issues revealed a far graver illness. With each subsequent examination, more widespread cancer was uncovered. The doctor's prognosis was bleak. Without surgery, he had only a few months left. Despite having insurance, it wasn't enough to cover everything. There were mounting hospital bills, everyday expenses, and the mortgage on our house to worry about. The happiness we had built together seemed to crumble in an instant. I was trembling with fear at the thought of losing Isaac and the overwhelming anxiety about our future. Helpless and scared, all I could do was worry. I'll ask my parents for help, I decided. With both my parents deceased and being an only child without relatives to turn to, it was our only option. "Okay, I'll go with you," Isaac agreed. We went to Isaac's parents and Stella's family, explaining our situation and asking for financial assistance. Cancer can often be treated successfully these days, right? Stella seemed oblivious to the severity of Isaac's condition. The in-laws, while not as dismissive as Stella, were hesitant to provide financial aid. "I heard you finished paying off your debts a few months ago," I ventured desperately. "Yes, we finally did. Please, we promise to repay you. Just lend us the money for Isaac's surgery and hospital stay. The funds you were saving for private school. Lend it to us now, please. I'll work too. We're begging you." We were practically pleading on our knees. "No way. We've only just started enjoying a little luxury. Besides, I have a life insurance policy that pays off my mortgage when I die. When that happens, we can sell the house and repay the money we borrowed. I'll even write a promissory note," my mother-in-law responded firmly. Despite our repeated pleas, my in-laws shook their heads. It was a devastating blow, even though we had anticipated their response. Why don't you sell the house now? Isaac asked as despair set in. We knew that might be our only option eventually, but if we sell now, we'll have to deduct the remaining mortgage from the sale price. We need enough left over to cover Isaac's medical expenses, ongoing treatment costs, and rent for a new place to live. I heard Isaac used to send money home even after moving out when he was single. It only seemed fair they reciprocate now. I reflected bitterly as my in-laws and Stella remained unmoved despite our heartfelt pleas. Isaac straightened up and calmly said, "All right, that's enough." As we prepared to leave, my brother-in-law hurried after us, admitting, "Wait a minute, it's not much and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have any savings," as he handed Isaac $2,000. It wasn't surprising, he had been helping with the debt repayments as well. Despite their claims of having paid off their debts, Isaac had played a significant role in it. "I'll try talking to them again. Please don't lose hope," my brother-in-law urged, and we thanked him deeply for his support. "Thank you. Your kindness means a lot. But do you have any other plans?" I asked. "Yes," as Stella suggested, "we're considering selling the house." "What?" I couldn't help but exclaim. "It's easier said than done. Selling a house involves procedures and takes time. It won't be quick enough for Isaac, who's going to be admitted to the hospital in a few days. Even if we manage to sell it, we still need to find a new place to live. It's a complex and challenging process." "It's okay. I remembered someone who might be able to help," Isaac said reassuringly with a smile. Looking at me over the past 2 years since his cancer diagnosis, Isaac had fought bravely. Despite the grim prognosis of only having a few months, he had managed to create countless cherished memories with us, his family, through multiple hospitalizations and recoveries. Although we had grown distant, when the doctor indicated he might not return home, I reached out to his parents' house. They did visit a few times after that, but their visits were brief, often leaving with comments like, "He seems stable," almost as if checking how much time Isaac had left. I shook my head, trying to dispel such a distressing thought. It couldn't be true, I reassured myself. When the doctor instructed me to notify the family, I knew the end was near. I quickly called my mother-in-law. "Oh dear, that's awful. We'll come right away," she responded hurriedly. "Yes, please hurry," I urged, though her response left me unsettled. I rushed back to the hospital room where Isaac and Wyatt awaited. In the end, only my brother-in-law, who came straight from work, and Isaac's close friend Thomas arrived. Isaac weakly opened his eyes, gazed at everyone, then closed them for the last time. My brother-in-law and Thomas handled the funeral arrangements while we prepared at home. Thomas drove us to the hospital that morning when we received the call, and now, as the sun set, Wyatt and I returned. We had left so hastily that morning we hadn't even cleaned up after breakfast. In the dimming evening light, I turned on the house lights and sat in the illuminated living room, flipping through a photo album. Tears flowed freely as I selected a photo for the memorial service, wiping them from the table as they fell. The doorbell rang, jolting me out of my tears. I glanced at the monitor and saw my mother-in-law and Stella stating together. "Ah, they came to help," I thought to myself, grateful for their presence, even though it was after the fact. Hurriedly, I made my way to the front door and swung it open, only to be greeted by a shocking sight. "Come on, bring everything in," my mother-in-law's commanding voice echoed behind the movers who were already stepping into our home, saying, "Excuse us," as if they owned the place. "What? Wait, what's happening?" I exclaimed in confusion, my voice betraying my bewilderment. Wyatt rushed downstairs from his room upon hearing the commotion. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, eyes wide as he observed the movers bustling about. "I don't understand," I stammered, utterly perplexed by the scene unfolding before me. Turning to Wyatt, I heard myself say, "They're taking over our house, son. We have to leave." "Yes, right now." My father-in-law was orchestrating the movers with efficient directives, filling our living room and other spaces with their belongings in a rapid frenzy. Wyatt's face paled suddenly, and he exclaimed, "No, you can't. Don't you know, Auntie?" His words hummed in the air, startling everyone present. "This house isn't Dad's anymore, and it's haunted." At Wyatt's revelation, my father-in-law halted, and the movers froze, their attention now fixed on Wyatt, who visibly trembled with fear. Suddenly, a booming voice filled the house and beyond. "What are you doing, bringing items into someone else's home without permission? Get out, right now." Thomas's voice reverberated loudly, causing a stir among the movers who, without waiting for confirmation, hastily began removing the belongings they had just brought in. Confusion reigned as their hastily abandoned items littered the sidewalk in front of our house. Oh no, my desk. I turned around at the sound of my nephew's distressed voice and saw my brother-in-law standing there with his 3 children. The kids were upset about their belongings strewn on the street. My brother-in-law turned to Stella, perplexed. I rushed over after a sudden call about moving. What's going on here exactly? Usually composed, my brother-in-law was visibly furious. What? Mom said you were moving, he exclaimed. What are you talking about? You agreed to this. Amid their heated exchange, my brother-in-law declared coldly, I can't deal with you two anymore. I want a divorce. What? What are you saying? Stella responded incredulously. Ignoring her, my brother-in-law quickly negotiated with the movers to only take his and the children's belongings to his parents' house. I apologize for the trouble during this difficult time. Please take my kids and our things to my parents' place, he instructed, avoiding eye contact with Stella. He and the children then left with the movers. Stella collapsed in tears on the street, and my in-laws stood stunned amidst the chaos of scattered belongings. Curious neighbors gathered, turning the scene into a distressing spectacle. Let's at least move these things inside. They're blocking the way here, Thomas suggested. I agreed with a nod. Yes, please, this is your house, after all, I said. What do you mean? My in-laws asked, clearly bewildered. Here's the real story. 2 years ago, the day after Isaac's parents denied us a loan, Isaac brought a formidable man home. That was Thomas. He owned a real estate business and even handed me his business card. Despite knowing he was Isaac's high school classmate, his imposing presence made me mistakenly believe he hailed from a different world. Even Wyatt, then just a middle schooler, clung tightly to me, visibly intimidated. Concerned, I stole a glance at Isaac. Catching my eye, Isaac tilted his head and burst into laughter. After a moment, Wyatt cautiously piped up, It's okay, Mom. Thomas may look intimidating, but he's actually a respectable businessman now. Suddenly, Thomas's eyes widened, and he playfully smacked Isaac on the head. Despite Isaac being unwell, he laughed heartily, which surprised me. Wyatt looked so pale I worried if he was even breathing. Thomas had never attended our wedding despite being invited, nor did he visit when we asked him to come over. Ah, that reminded me. Isaac often mentioned Thomas in stories about their school days and nights out. From those stories I had imagined a dependable, good friend, so I never connected the dots. Look at me, I avoid weddings and home visits because my intimidating appearance might cause trouble. So that's why you're still single, huh? I'll hit you again, I chuckled, watching their playful banter. It was clear Thomas was the same person Isaac spoke fondly of. Both of them stopped and turned to look at me. Oh, sorry, it's just that Isaac gets so childishly excited sometimes. He's always like this, I chuckled. Thomas, remember Wyatt is here. A father's dignity is important, I added, trying to lighten the mood. Dignity, huh? Dad never had that in the first place, Wyatt interjected playfully. I then mentioned to Thomas how disappointed Isaac had been about missing our wedding and expressed our desire for him to visit us more often. Thank you. Now, let's get down to business, as time is of the essence, Thomas said abruptly, his tone turning serious. First, let's assess the condition of the house. Thomas meticulously inspected each room, examining everything from the exterior walls to the meter box. After completing his inspection, he pulled out his laptop and began typing. A few moments later, he turned the screen towards us. What do you think about this price for the house? The figure he proposed took my breath away. It was significantly higher than what we had originally paid. Well, that's a very generous valuation, but can we realistically expect to sell it at this price? It's been about 10 years since we moved in, and without renovations, I'm worried it might not attract buyers. Like my mother-in-law and sister-in-law mentioned, there are some stains here and there, and the hardwood floors are showing their age. Ah, Isaac mentioned something about their plans for each room, right? Yes, that means they believe it's perfectly livable as it is. Don't worry, it will sell at this price, Isaac reassured me, casting a supportive glance at Thomas. All right, let's proceed at this price, I said with a relieved smile. Thomas promptly laid out several documents on the table. Oh, and we should discuss finding a new place to live, Thomas added with a grin. Yes, certainly. Among the documents were rental agreement forms. First, I'll purchase this house directly. That addresses your first concern. Then, I'll lease the same house back to you. There, your second concern is resolved as well. What? I was taken aback. Thomas continued, I'll transfer the proceeds from the house sale to your account within a few days. You can use it to pay off the remaining mortgage. He smiled confidently. The transformation from his previously intimidating demeanor to a boyish joy was striking. As I filled out the paperwork, I noticed the rental amount listed, $200. Isaac and Wyatt leaned over to inspect the document, clearly surprised. Isn't that supposed to be $2,000? I chuckled, assuming it was a mistake. No, it's correct, Thomas replied calmly. What? But that's too low, I protested. That's what I owe Isaac, Thomas explained. After a moment of reflection, Isaac simply said, No, you don't. Then Thomas began to share a story from their school days. It turns out Thomas was quite a troublemaker in his youth, frequently getting into conflicts that left his single mother in tears. One day, during high school, his mother, exhausted and stressed, was hospitalized. When Thomas rushed to the hospital and saw his frail, diminished mother, he was deeply moved and realized his behavior had caused her stress. Overwhelmed with guilt, he broke down, crying like a child. From that moment, he resolved to change his ways, steering clear of trouble and conflicts. However, there was an incident with a cigarette butt found on the school's rooftop, Thomas recounted. It ignited nearby trash, leading to a small fire. Due to my troubled past, the school authorities immediately pointed fingers at me. Despite my protests, no one believed my innocence and expulsion seemed imminent. Fearing disappointment from his mother, Isaac was the only one who stood by my side, Thomas reminisced with gratitude. At the time, he was the student council president. We hadn't even spoken before then, Thomas recalled fondly. He rallied support, gathering evidence and finding the actual culprit who had smoked the cigarette. I believed in him when he said he didn't do it. That belief changed everything for me. No one else believed me, but Isaac's support allowed me to graduate high school, mend my relationship with my mother, and eventually start my own business, Thomas acknowledged sincerely. That's why I owe so much to Isaac. As a family, we looked at each other, moved by Thomas's story. We gratefully accepted Thomas's proposal regarding the rent. That's what happened 2 years ago, Wyatt interjected proudly. Now, I own this house and I'm renting it back to your family. If you need reassurance, I can show you the documents later, Thomas said, glancing warmly at Wyatt and then smiling at my in-laws. After the funeral concluded smoothly, we settled into a 2-bedroom apartment recommended by Thomas. Just unpack the essentials for now. We might be moving back to the house soon, Thomas hinted with a grin. Intrigued by his cryptic comment, I leaned in to ask for clarification, and Wyatt joined in, eager to understand. Well, originally, I had considered evicting them, Thomas confessed quietly. Here's the plan, he whispered conspiratorially. 3 days later, we returned to the house under the guise of retrieving forgotten items. Thomas accompanied us, and my hesitant mother-in-law reluctantly served us tea and snacks. How are you finding living here? Thomas casually inquired. Oh, it's not bad, my father-in-law replied with a hint of satisfaction. Really? Not at all. Have you noticed any strange noises on the stairs or in the bathroom when no one else is around? Wyatt's eyes widened as he scanned the room nervously. Now that you mention it, Wyatt, didn't you say something about a ghost? Yeah, Mom probably doesn't know. But ever since Dad got hospitalized, there have been weird noises. Like, I saw the hem of a skirt at the top of the stairs, thinking Mom had come back, but when I checked, no one was there. Wyatt explained. That's nonsense, interrupted his mother-in-law, but Wyatt and Thomas simultaneously jerked their heads to look upstairs. Is someone upstairs? That's impossible. Stella, who had become quite downhearted since her divorce from her brother-in-law was decided, remained silent. But in the living room, hey, cut it out with the weird talk. I didn't hear anything, insisted Wyatt's father-in-law. Wyatt and Thomas exchanged glances and quickly gathered their things. That's a relief. We'll be taking our leave now, Thomas announced. They hurriedly left the house and got into the car. The in-laws who had come to see them off at the entrance had frightened looks on their faces. In the car, we burst into laughter. Thomas's plan was to use the spur of the moment. Wyatt explained about seeing the ghost. It's a punishment for being cold and distant to Isaac for so long. In what world do parents and a sister leave their dying son behind and start preparing to move into his house? Thomas spat out the words as he drove, his frustration palpable. Eventually, Thomas and Wyatt kept repeating similar things, and even paranormal phenomena that were never mentioned seemed to start occurring in that house. The in-laws and Stella were scared on their own, mistaking house noises for poltergeists. They complained to Thomas and Wyatt, but we never experienced any of it. The power of suggestion is scary, isn't it? Wyatt said with a laugh. Finally, unable to bear it, the in-laws and Stella moved out of the house. Thomas apparently helped them find a house within their budget. That was just business. I made sure to refer them. Found them a cheap apartment within their budget, Thomas said with a sly grin. Wyatt and I applauded him. Meanwhile, Stella, who divorced her husband, had to start working again to pay child support. She seems to be fully experiencing the harshness of society. Now that the parents who used to take care of them are gone, they have to fend for themselves. I really hope they make it in the end. We returned to the house we bought with Isaac. We can't buy it back, but we still get to live there for $200 a month. The brother-in-law and his 3 kids have started showing their faces again. Stella seems to want to get back together, but he's not considering it at all right now. And once a month, Thomas comes by under the pretext of collecting rent. He makes sure it's on the monthly anniversary of Isaac's death. After paying respects at the altar, we have dinner together. He even listens to high schooler Wyatt's troubles. Wyatt and I share a little secret joy. It's the stories about Isaac's student days that Thomas sometimes shares during dinner. Many of these stories are new to us, showing us sides of Isaac we never knew. I'm sure Isaac is laughing along with us at the dinner table, making excuses like a child saying, well, you know, he'd say, making excuses like a kid.